Welcome to Beyond the Quo, where we break boundaries, redefine success, and inspire leaders to live authentically and courageously. I'm your host, Stacey Luces, and today we're talking about purpose, how it's born, how it evolves, and how saying yes, even when you're terrified, can lead to extraordinary changes. Joining us today is Lisa Murphy, a woman whose story is a testament to resilience, heart, and the power of community. Welcome, Lisa.
Oh, thank you.
You're very welcome. So Lisa is the founder of Open Hearts for Orphans, a nonprofit organization transforming the lives of abandoned and at-risk children across the U.S. and abroad. Lisa and her husband, Jim, have built their family through adoption 5 times over and are now raising 4 teenagers. God bless you. Lisa is also the author of With an Open Heart, a heartfelt memoir about love, loss, and unexpected blessings. Lisa, first, happy birthday.
Thank you. I know.
Today is your birthday.
Yeah. Isn't that kind of Beyond the Quo?
Yes, on your birthday. And we just had delicious French croissants and coffee, so that's amazing. But your story aligns so beautifully with kind of the core themes of this podcast, right? Courageous leadership, leading not only yourself, but in the community, and building a family sort of in an unorthodox fashion, but certainly in a way that's super fulfilling, redefining success, and of course, living authentically. I'm so excited to have you with us.
Thank you.
So let's dive right in. Reading your story and kind of learning more about the work that you do, certainly it strikes a chord with me, right? And one of the things that struck me is what led you to do this out of grief and out of like your personal experience. Talk to us a little bit about how this all came about.
Yeah. Wow. Our why. I mean, it's definitely beauty out of ashes. God blessed us through adoption, and Jim and I started our family. We adopted our daughter, Maddie. She's now a freshman in college. She was one year when she came home. And that experience just changed us. I mean, parenthood alone will change you. All of a sudden it's like, okay, never mind, life's not about me anymore.
Yeah.
And then we just were thinking, wow, we think, it'd be nice for Maddie to have a sibling. We looked at various different adoption programs, and we settled back on China because we felt like having a sibling to share that experience with would be good. So by that time, when we started our adoption process, there were many kids with special needs, and there was a sea of boys. People didn't realize that there were boys available. So we were kind of like, just whatever, whatever, wherever we're led to go. And so we ended up being matched with this little boy named Daniel. We named him Daniel. We met him on January 24th of 2010.
Wow.
So we just had our gotcha day 15 years ago. Like, wow, how did that happen? And then we celebrated his second birthday together on February 2nd. So that's coming up. He would be 17. And my birthday today, we spent together in China. And we brought him home, and life was just beautiful. I mean, he was such a beautiful, vibrant, he definitely had this old soul, he was just the wisest 2-year-old on the planet. And then we knew he needed his heart surgery. So we took him in, and he came out of the surgery really strong. They closed his chest. They felt, I forgot to mention he had a broken heart, literally, 4 major heart defects. So he came out of his heart surgery very strong. He declined through the night, and he went into cardiac arrest the next morning. Yeah. And it was just this, wait a minute, what? We just went through,
all of that.
months and months and months, and getting him home. How could this happen?
You felt you were almost at the finish line with it.
It was so confused, It was just not understanding. But we were never without hope. We just 19-day roller coaster, ups and downs. Organs would improve, organs would fail. Again, we just truly felt God's presence in that time with us, and ultimately, he passed away on May 30th, and it was just devastating.
Yeah.
You know, we look at it after and say, but you know what? He didn't die alone.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to say that.
He didn't die as an orphan. Mm-hmm. He was a son. He was a brother. He was loved by a community. He was baptized.
And quite honestly, now his legacy, the legacy of this stemmed from that.
That's the beauty out of the ashes.
Wow.
So almost immediately, I honestly felt two things, called to share two things, share his story and go back were the two messages I got.
Yeah.
So started writing the book With an Open Heart, which is the memoir. Honestly, I knew I needed to get every scrap of every memory of every detail out of here and somewhere. And it was cathartic. Like I just poured my heart and soul into that book, and a labor of love.
If you don't mind me asking, how old were you? Like decade-wise?
Okay, well, we started adopting Maddie, like we were almost 40 then. So I'm going to say we were that was 2010. I'm 58 today. Help me with the math.
So that would have been 58, 48. So about 40. Okay. Yeah, about 40. And whoever's doing math, you can send a comment on that.
So a little bit older.
I'll tell you why I asked that after,
And so we just felt like going back, and people thought we were crazy. I know our family thought we were crazy. Like, how can you do that? But you know what? It wasn't about replacing Daniel.
Yeah.
We knew we couldn't do that.
Yeah.
But it was about knowing the need. It was about knowing that Daniel would want that for another child. It was about knowing that God would want that for another child. People say why. We say, why not? And so we started the process again. We were matched with our son, Charlie, that October.
Of the same year.
Of the same year.
Wow,
So here, laid him to rest in,
May.
At the end of May, so June. In October, we were already and we just got the call. The adoption agency said they got this file out of nowhere, opened it up, and she looked at it and said, "That's the Murphy's baby." And called us, and I was like, "How do you know? I need a sign. What's his birthday?" And she gives me his birthday, September 16th, and that was the same birthday as Jim, my husband, my husband's mom, who had passed away the year before.
Wow.
We were like, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Charlie had a hole in his heart, which miraculously healed by the time we even met him, and we're united with him. My daughter at the time, our daughter was 4 years old. Maddie was 4 when she lost her brother. And that was, sometimes we don't think about her, in that shuffle and how confusing that had to be.
And everything seemed to be so condensed, like the whole experience, the joy, the heartbreak, the grief, like everything. And then the joy again of somebody else. And then maybe some guilt.
There was lots of guilt.
Yeah.
There was lots of, you go through those emotions, like, what did we do? Was that, did we not do enough research? Did we not, you do. Yeah. You go through all those things. But that's where I think, faith meets that fear, because ultimately.
I love that, faith meets that fear.
Because you can't. You just can't even sit there and, break that down like that.
And I feel the reason I asked about kind of your age is I feel like, so my podcast really is geared towards those in midlife that have some hardships behind them and in front of them. Like it's not over for us, right? Like,
no,
right? We're coming into act 2. And I feel like in our 40s and 50s is where the rubber, the rubber hits the road at this point. And you have a choice to courageously hit the gas in spite of all the things that have happened.
Right.
Or you can pause and idle and literally stay in status quo. Yeah. And so I feel like there always is this, I like to refer to it as liminal space, where you're not standing, you're not sitting, you're kind of hovering on the in-between, trying to figure out what your next move is. And I think that that your story is so powerful, because even in spite of it being a moment when everybody expected you to kind of fall apart and melt into even if we were to stretch that experience out for a few years, would have been painful and chaotic and all the things we just talked about, condensed like that is even more meaningful and traumatic at the same time.
Yeah.
And so the ability to sort of make decisions, lifelong decisions, from a place of that is really a lesson learned for all of us, because when you have clarity around yourself and your values, and it seems like for you it was very much a God in control faith.
Yes.
I'm being led, the woman giving the call, it being it was your father-in-law's birthday.
It was my mother-in-law's.
Right, mother-in-law's birthday. Like all of you kind of, you were very rapidly making it make sense. And I would say too, that even the choice to get your son, who also had, right, a heart condition.
Trusting.
Yeah.
And to Maddie, you know, like I said to Maddie one day, we were in her room and she's playing real quiet. And I said, Maddie, do you think you'd want another baby brother someday? And she just sat there. And all of a sudden she turns around and looks me square in the eyes and says, I want to go to China this time. And I was like, okay. So Maddie did go to China to get Charlie. So where she had missed out on that with Daniel. She got to see that whole process, be part of that process of bringing her brother home. And then we went back again and again because we just, you know.
Tell me about I always talk about the relationships and the people that you surround yourself with, right? Your network. And not in the sense of networking, right? But the humans that you are doing life with.
Yes.
And for many of us, it's a combination of those from our childhood, to include parents and siblings and maybe some cousins or whatever. And then those from our growth years, high school, friends, partners, whatever. There has to be, as with anything, a level of, I'm just going to say, judgment on the decisions that you are making with Jim for your life.
Right.
How do you navigate difficult, in your case, really soul-led decisions, because you are actively pursuing and nurturing kids that not only were abandoned, but have, quote unquote, have abnormal, right? Whether it was their heart or, right. How do you stay resolute with those decisions when everybody probably had an opinion? Does that make sense?
Oh, it absolutely makes sense. And the answer is, you just do it. you don't look, because there's always going to be people who want to crush that dream, or they're jealous of what you're doing, or they just don't get it. And then there's always those people who want to wrap around you and
I love that.
You know, and help you fundraise and help you live that dream and be part of it. And you just have to focus on
I love that.
You have to focus on the goodness and just leave the bad in the dust. Like, don't give it life. You know, if I don't even look, like, you just keep going.
And
it's an obedience.
Yes,
you know?
I asked that question because there are so many people and so much need. And I think, so my brother has Down syndrome. We talked about that a little bit when we were grabbing birthday pastries. And even now I have people in my circle that, you know, have been trying, are pregnant, and they struggle with the decision. And I knew when I was going to have kids, because he is my sibling, that there was a higher risk for me. And so, you know, when they do the tests and they kind of ask you the questions and you get into this decision, and worse yet, maybe some people didn't have a quote unquote choice, had a child and had something that, you know, they considered and put that kid up for adoption. And so now they're in the system. What would you say to those people that are considering it, but hesitating because they're either fearful that they may not live up or be able to do the things necessary depending on the level of care that's needed, or whatever. You know better than me. Is that a fair question?
Yes, it's a fair question. But there's a saying that says, God doesn't call the equipped.
He equips the called. Yeah.
And so I would say if people truly feel called to whatever that is, that God will equip them. And I mean, we're living proof, you know, and I'm not saying we're not any form of saint. We're not heroes. We're just normal people trying, doing our best over here, scraping for grace. But,
It's so funny. Yeah.
But it's true.
It's true.
You just,
the universe shows up for you in these moments in ways that we can't even dream about.
Yeah. So I do feel like,
go for it.
If people feel it, if you feel called, and once you put it out there, it does grow life. Once we said, that's why we called it the Say Yes Adoption Grant, because once you say yes, I feel like you give God your yes. It's unbelievable how things start
falling into
happening.
place.
And
what are resources for folks who are feeling this way but also challenged?
I love being a resource. So we actually have a program. It's called Arise. So that's adoption resources, information, stories, and encouragement.
Yeah.
And that was the exact purpose of that particular part of what we do. Because I remember what it was like to go, okay, we're interested, sign us up. And then it's like, okay, where? And there's so many different paths, and it's so confusing and it's so overwhelming. So I feel like if we can be this,
like a wise guide.
Yeah, just let us talk you through it. Let us help you find the path. And once you think, okay, well, maybe that's a path, well, then we'll give you some resources to check out in that direction. And
I also think maybe, and this just occurred to me, I will say that maybe a stereotype I'm having, and I just unhad it, was that adoption is for a specific age group, childbearing, unable. And I'm not sitting here happily able to get pregnant. I had 3 miscarriages in between my children. And both my children are rainbow babies. And it was a chaotic decade in the baby making stage. So I get those feelings of raw hopelessness and what to do. But I also, and I'm laughing, and hopefully my husband hears this and chuckles also, our kids are growing up and we're fairly young parents, right? I'm in my 40s, my daughter is 18. And we were snickering and we're like, oh my God, it would be so delicious. And then we're like, no.
Right.
But I would venture to say that, and we talked about there being a loneliness epidemic and there's so much need. And I feel like I have a friend, Jess. She's my age. Jess is going to die laughing when she hears this. Jess is like a young, sexy grandma, right? Like her daughter just had a baby and she's spoiling this baby rotten. But what do you say to the young, able-bodied people that may have been exploring it, but the empty nesters? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. So
I never thought of that, but now I'm like, oh my goodness.
I know, I'm laughing. I'm like, okay, I'll be 75 signing up to be a foster parent.
Oh my God.
I definitely think there's space for it. And let me tell you my favorite or unfavorite myth about adoption.
Tell me.
Is when people think that adoption is reserved for people who can't have kids biologically.
I love that you...
So untrue. My favorite families are these families that are these blended families that have all these, let's say they have 5 biological children.
Yes.
And then they adopt a child, and then they adopt... I know families that have 20 kids because they just they just get the
bug.
They get the bug, and they realize it actually is a blessing. It teaches their other children a level of compassion that there's just, it's unmatched.
That's such a beautiful.
Yeah, think about the beautiful gift you're giving your biological children to be able to share that experience with them and really teach them how to love unconditionally, like even when things are really hard. And I don't know, maybe that's how we change the world.
And to be fair, none of this is sort of it's all kumbaya. Like all of this is hard and testing and grueling,
it's
right?
No fairy tale.
Yes.
It's not rainbows.
You said something that was so interesting to me when we were hanging out just now, that so you've got 4 teens and you were like, oh, they're all going to be from China, so they'll get along. Right. But to your point, it's from they came in at different ages, different stages, different level of trauma, different level of needs, different provinces.
Different circumstances.
Like, how is that, one, the ecosystem that you have to manage?
Yes.
But also it's going to sound crazy, but I'm just going to ask, what leadership skills do you as a parent have to bring to the table for teenagers, which on a normal basis are headstrong, right?
There's a reason that my hormone test uncovered that I'm in fight or flight 24/7. It's crazy. You just have to, it's like, but I think it's parenting. Like, you just have to meet, you can't really do, what kind of preventative care can you do? Well, we feed them well, we feed them good food, and, they get a lot of rest. But when there's a trauma moment, like, you just have to get through it and walk them through it. And it's funny, it's really changed me because I am, type A, OCD, control freak, like just hot mess. So it's really kind of reeled me in as far as like, I can't, like, I really am at God's mercy here. Like, I just have to, whatever's happening, I just have to, like,
I'm going to give you
get me through this.
I'm going to give you a birthday reframe.
Oh, okay.
I think that you're compassionate, kind-hearted, courageous.
Thank you.
None of those may also apply sometimes, but I think you got to give yourself a lot more credit than you just did. Yeah. Tell me about the people that you work with. I just had Alex Ortiz on for a podcast, and it was a heavy topic, right? Human trafficking. And this is also a heavy topic. Mm-hmm. But tell me about I hate to say stakeholders, but really, because I'm sure they run the gamut. Your donors, your board, your volunteers, your staff, people like myself that are curious and interested and give you a platform because we care. But how are you managing those different roles and expectations, but also staying true to the reason you started this?
Right. Okay. So it started very grassroots.
Yeah.
Like after Lulu came home, that was when I was like, okay, we're done building our family, but I know too much.
Tell me the time gap between starting.
2006, 10 years.
Got it.
So 2016 brought Lulu home, and that's when we were like, okay, we're done building our family, but you
Work
can't
left to be
pretend
done.
like you don't know what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
I started this very, very grassroots. It was very, almost like a hobby at home. Remotely.
Aren't the best things usually starting?
Yeah, and it was, a lot online, really just in the adoption community.
Sure.
And I knew like if it was going to be real, that adoption community would need credibility over time. Like I knew that I just had to, keep dripping and keep taking one right step in front of the other and doing all the right things compliance wise and building wise. Our board has always included more so than like attracting board members that had a lot of funding to offer. We were a bunch of adoptive moms who really just wanted to
rallied around that passion and that lived experience. Who better?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so now I love that 2 of the adoptive moms that they weren't OG board members, but they, came on in time.
I love that you said OG board members.
So one is Mary and one is Anne, and they both have heart babies in heaven with Daniel. Wow. They both adopted these amazing. Mary's daughter Ivy Joy was an incredible baby, and Teresa's heart warrior, Anne's heart warrior, Teresa. And so brought them on.
Yeah.
And so Mary handles our adoption side. This year, Anne came on, and she's handling our orphan care and the medical intervention side. And here we get to do this in memory of our kids. So it's like, it just feels right. And yeah.
One of the things I talk about a lot is legacy and purpose, right? And sort of marrying those two things. It sounds like all of you are living through this shared experience and this grief and this whatever resiliency that's baked into you to keep going, and not only to keep going, but to actually create a platform, and not only to create a platform, but to advocate for this and talk about this over and over again. And there's a lot of times when people do things, whether it's sexual abuse or child abuse or, domestic violence or drug addiction, where they come out of these dark places and go on to do magnificent work, the work of the world. And it stems from their lived experience.
Causes are born from our lived experiences. I wholeheartedly believe that. God gives us a story. And like you say, you can just sit there, or you can
gas it.
Or you can, put the pedal to the metal and give it life, And so, yes, it absolutely is legacy. It's a blessing to be able to. Well, what I love is we've all walked the walk. We're not,
lip service.
We're not doing something that we haven't. We care about it so much, and we're so passionate about it because we've all been through it, like a number of times. Anne has adopted 7 kids.
Really?
And I hope I got that number right, Anne. And
Anne is going to forgive you. It's your birthday.
We just, and our board is amazing. And I feel like that we attract these amazing people like Suzanne on our board and Mia on our board, Julie and Nick. It's more than, I just think it's meaningful to them. Like they get it.
Tell me about this is an interesting question.
Okay.
I was on the board of UN Women in Miami. And when we did fundraising events, it was during 2020. One of my term years was during 2020, and we had to pivot to do virtual events and stuff.
Okay.
And that was the first time being trained in fundraising that I understood that was a competitive field. Oh. It's competitive to fundraise.
Gotcha.
How does that work given the multiple array of places we can support, donate, volunteer? What are the relationships like? What is the reality of that part of it? Like literally being in competition for donors, and not in the sense of traditional competition.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But the heart, wants to do so much. But maybe what do you think you would want to say to the donor that has options, but like, how does that work?
Okay. I feel like we're a little bit different.
Yeah.
I feel like we're a lot of bit different, actually, than many of the charities here in our backyard. Because we do have local reach, but we also have national reach, and we also have global reach. I feel like God gave us these global hearts. And we're acting, we're doing it. And so I feel like that, number one, sets us. So I feel like there's certain people, this is not something I shouldn't say I feel like, what I've seen.
Yes.
I think it's apparent that people feel drawn to certain things. Not everybody is drawn to a global cause. I got, a lot of
UN Women, they're like, why can't you help women in your community versus people in Guatemala?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that. But
there's a lot of pushback.
Then there's people that just do get it, and they get it big time. So I feel like God puts the right people around your ministry that need to be. I don't look at it like competition. I like to actually try to collaborate with people. So like let's say the big fish in the sea would be like down here would be like 4 kids who does, foster care. I love them. I love the people.
Yes.
So we became a community champion. And so we're one of their people who meets needs So I love collaborating. I feel like there's more room for that. If we could just work together, we could probably further things a lot more.
One of my, I like to push the envelope with questions like this because one of the big things that I love to do is stakeholder coalition building. And a part of this is really me injecting some of these questions that people are probably thinking about, but really don't want to say, but they gave me a microphone, so I'll say it.
I love it.
But I love that what you said. You find the big pond and sort of how do you become a part of it and
aligned.
Not separate from it?
How do we align with them? If we're meeting the mission, how can we work together? What can we do for you? And I think that's different too. Like, I feel maybe I'm a person that instead of always saying, like, what can you do for us? I just have this, like, what can we do for you? How can we help? How can we be involved? How can, and I feel like that's where some beautiful partnerships are born, maybe. I don't know.
No, I love that. And I think it's a worthy conversation, even for new players into the nonprofit world and the founders and so forth that are struggling with, is anybody hearing me screaming in the forest?
Right. Yeah. Find people, look at the people next to you and figure out ways to work together. But I do think in our donors, I just think we're surrounded by just incredible, and more, like we clearly need to get the word out more. So we were born in 2016. 2017 became a 501c3. Did most everything online until about 2023 when we started joining chambers and Suzanne got me out there. But let me tell you something. St. Vincent Ferrer, Catholic Church, which is where my husband and I became Catholic when we were starting our adoption journeys. And that community has just been the most welcoming community in the whole wide world. We speak at the masses every November, and those people have the most beautiful open hearts. They are like really majorly responsible for the growth of our adoption grant program.
Sure.
And they just keep showing up and they keep doubling down and it's like so
delightful.
It's delightful because we're able to grow from that.
One of the things that is important in my life is my partnership, marriage, soulmate, right? This human I'm doing life with. And I think that if you're up to good trouble, if you're up to good shenanigans, having somebody that's walking alongside you in something like this is amazing. And not all of us are blessed to have that. I realize that. But talk to me about Jim and sort of, because I find that when I'm doing big things, I'm the one dragging Kevin alongside me, and he will, right? But as your partner, and I know for me when I was going through my losses and my journey, he was having his own lived experience while trying to support me, and then you want to go back and have, adopt more. And I get the sense that you may have been the driver.
He will tell you, he said no 4 times.
But tell me about the caliber of that relationship and the level of trust and integrity that has to exist in a partnership like that to do the work that you're doing, but also why I like to ask these questions is to tease out the ingredients, right?
Yeah, we're very different people.
How so?
He's amazing. Like he's he's a quiet, gentle, like he's more like an assertive person. I'm probably like more aggressive. He's just, a gentle giant, heart of gold. And you're so right. Like, I think I failed to realize, like, writing the book was so cathartic for me. And here I was moving on. And now we're going to, do this. And now I'm going to start a charity. And meanwhile, he's like still grieving over the loss of Daniel. And he realized like last year, I need to do more. Like, I think it's his time to become a little more involved, and he's just a great man. He loves his kids, loves his family, loves the mission, but you're right. Sometimes I have to drag him a little bit.
Right.
And, you know, he's just got the greatest heart, or he wouldn't have gone along with all these journeys, you know. So he's obedient too. He'd probably tell you he's a little bit more fearful, to say yes than I was.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Sometimes I wonder. I think God calls the women
Yeah.
maybe a little more. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. And I think it's okay. I know I've been doing some things these past couple of, certainly years, but definitely in the last couple of months, that I hesitate to step over the line into the unknown, including this podcast, to be honest. And I think that's when you not only rally yourself, but I think women tend to look for, like, we want to partner more, right? Like we feel stronger in a tribe with a community. And so talk to me about, you know, you mentioned all of these women that have been through a similar experience. What do you say to someone that may think they don't have the right ingredients, the right network, the right support system to really go after something that they're passionate about, whether it's the work that you're doing, or maybe it's the autistic community, like whatever. Like, what do you say to them if they think that, who am I?
I definitely agree with what you're saying. You just hit the nail on the head. Find that community, like whatever that community is.
And if they're like, how, Lisa, how?
Well, social media is actually a really good place.
Yeah.
Find the groups. All you have to do is type that in there and you'll find a group. I think that, you know, some of my best friends I met on Facebook.
100%.
I'm sorry, I have an actual tribe that's from Facebook. I remember we drove like 3 hours away to go meet a friend of mine that I met on Facebook, and my kids were giving me so much grief. They're like, you told us never to meet strangers on social media, and here we were, like, driving to go meet a friend from
have
Facebook.
never met, and totally, like, right? We totally had one conversation Friday, and then lunch. I do think for me personally, and maybe it's because I am older, I'm more confident in myself and who I am in the world, and that took a lot of work. As for many of us, it takes a lot of work to be more comfortable in your own skin.
Right.
And my ability to connect is so much more intentional than it was when I was younger.
And don't you feel like it's easy? We just have to be authentic.
Yes.
Just be our authentic self.
How do we help the generations?
I think they just have to find it. I think you could have told, you know, crazy former me that, but until I was ready to be my, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you just have to live your journey.
You just have to shed that. I feel like you got to shed that skin at some point.
Yeah,
and
I think you said it with the age thing. I think with age comes wisdom. I mean, haven't they been saying that forever?
Well, I heard this theory. It wasn't theory, it's scientific. I'm a bit of a nerd, and I like data backed, whatever. And they talked about, and I've talked about this in an earlier episode, where because we are bumping up either in perimenopause or menopause or beyond, scientifically, our estrogen drops and our testosterone rises.
Oh boy!
And now we're rolling in this testosterone that men have had their entire life.
Oh,
and so now we really give less Fs. And so we like to say, oh, I'm in my, you know, but really there's
hormonal, like,
where we are more emboldened and more confident and less worried about what so-and-so are going to say or how do I show up. Yeah.
I could get behind that. I could believe that.
I like to talk about small movements that create momentum. It sounds like even in a vacuum of big things happening with you, after you adopted your last child and understood that you had now a recipe, a remedy, right, for somebody else going through that experience or that journey, and you had something to share and some sort of guidance to give to people, what are some baby steps that you would encourage leaders to do, not only if they want to start a foundation, but that lessons learned you've seen in other foundations where like, what would you say to them if you were queen for a day? And not that, oh my God, your way is better than their way, but
I like the way that ours is unfolded. I think, I think a lot to do with what I had said about the credibility. Make sure you do everything right.
Yeah.
Don't take shortcuts. First of all, make sure it's something that is a viable, like, that you want to, really understand. Because I got to be honest, I didn't realize this is a full-time job. Like, starting a nonprofit is not, like I told you.
It's not a hobby.
It's not a hobby.
Yeah.
It's an
That's
actual,
important.
So be dedicated to it and know that it's going to be like, it's going to consume you.
And you're still going to have to do it. And you have to love it.
You have to love it, or if you want it to thrive, And
there's a saying where you would do it even if you weren't paid for it.
Yeah.
That is no truer than.
And do the right things compliance wise. I think I'm proud of the fact that we've never skipped a tax filing. We, do all the board
details,
stuff, all the compliance, all the right things, because at the end of the day, you are stewarding other people's money. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you
want to have that level of integrity.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're responsible, and there's a lot of some gravity to that. You want to make sure you're doing good things, and so I think that's a big one. Just understanding, going in with your eyes open, knowing what's involved. And
what do you hope that your kids take away from their lived experience with Lisa and Jim and the work that you're doing?
I just want them to know, just how loved they are, and look, God gave us all a different story.
Yeah.
And I think everybody, as we know, everybody has hardship. Everybody suffers loss. It's just how we deal with that loss. And I just hope that they can find, beauty in their hard stories, and hopefully they'll like the mission that, God's given our family, and, maybe some of them will carry on someday. Our daughter Maddie actually does some social media stuff for us sometimes in some projects, and that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I haven't even said what we do, which is, we provide resources for orphan and abandoned children through medical intervention, meeting basic needs, and adoption assistance. And so you talked about small steps too. It's okay to start small. We started the Say Yes Adoption Grant. It was $300.
Wow.
And now it's $4,000. And we give 25 of those a year. And when it was $300, I look back and I think, well, what, sometimes I used to
what could $300 do? Yeah.
But do you know, we have this one family that reminds me every year that $300 grant was the catalyst to their yes. That was when, because her husband said, if you want to adopt this child, well, then provide the money to start the process. And then the agency called her and said, you just got a grant for the application fee.
Wow.
And she told her husband, and he was like, okay. And so now they have this beautiful daughter with Down syndrome. Her name is Annie, and she is just the joy of their lives.
I love this story. So when I had my first business, it was personal styling and branding. And one of the things that we did was give micro loans to women in developing countries. And it was $250. And again, we are coming at it from our frame of reference.
Right.
And the first microloan that I was able to give went to a woman in Uganda. And she bought, it was almost like a pen pal, like they would update you on what the money did.
Okay.
And so she bought textiles, thread, and a sewing machine and so forth, and started doing scarves and then clothing, and then eventually started her own business in the community, eventually started employing other women in the community.
Amazing.
Eventually they banded together And I mean, the stories that spring from
that one little.
And I think that's the ripple effect, but also I like to call it the cascade, right? Tiny little snow, and then you have this avalanche. That's the power of small steps. Yeah. I think we have this, and I don't want to say I blame social media, but you know, comparatively speaking, if we keep comparing ourselves to what the penultimate version of the thing is, you will never start.
Right.
If I compare myself, Oprah does coaching. Right. Oprah has a podcast. Mel Robbins. If I were like, oh my God, I want number one rate, I would never open my mouth.
That's, yeah. you can't even, that's right. You can't even go there.
Yeah. And there's probably so many stories about like that.
So many stories. In Uganda, I love that you just shared that, because we do so much with people in Uganda. And it is crazy to me how, like, when I think of, I love to share how like $8,000 can build a 3-room house with solar lighting on the roof so they can have light at night, with a latrine so they're not like going to the bathroom in a hole in the ground. Yeah. Well, they are, but it's it's concrete and it's safe, and with a water tank so they can have at least rainwater to bathe with, and a kitchen so they're not like cooking in the middle of their little home, and just the safety, the hope, and furniture to sit on, and in a sustainability project, like maybe produce, selling, things they've grown, or, like you're saying, sewing machines we've done pigs, we've done chickens, we've done, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's tiny little
these
things.
Tiny little things that when you think about what $8,000.
I heard a story about someone donating a juice press, right? Like it was like $80. And this woman started making fresh mango juice. Yeah. And she would go to the city limits, where the airport.
Love it.
And then when they were passing, she would have fresh pressed mango juice.
Smart.
So, listen, never underestimate the innovativeness of the human spirit.
Oh, it's amazing. And you know what we talk about too? And you and I talked about that at breakfast. The joy.
Yeah.
Like these people don't realize that they don't have what we have here. It doesn't matter. Like Anne just got back from there. That was our very first like major mission trip. And she went over to visit our partners and just get our feet on the ground there. We're very fortunate to have amazing partners. Yeah. And she said it's crazy. Like they have nothing, yet they are the richest in spirit and just the most joyful people.
Well, we have quote unquote everything, and we're all lonely and depressed out here. So I say we, being kind. I mean, I think statistic is like 60% of middle-aged women. Well, I say women, adults are either anxious or depressed. Like the statistics are crazy. So for me, I think if we do some of these things, no matter what our circumstance is, there is hope. There is the ability to move forward. There's the ability to enact change. And there is the ability to create momentum. And one of the richest parts of my life, I think in the last couple of years, has been opening myself to community in a way that I think I told you, I had 50-something first cousins. I didn't need to make friends growing up, but opening yourself to people that are different than you, look different, speak differently, have different lived experiences, and really gaining from the richness of those textures just makes you that much better, right? All of us. So I love that.
With that.
So Lisa, where can people find you and the mission that you do? Is anything coming up? I'm going to push to have this episode released.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, last year we had our very first day of giving. So what is a day of giving? It is just one day when we just try to propel the mission and raise funds for this year. And so February 7th, Friday, February 7th is our day of giving. We'll have the opportunities to give on our website and on all of our social media channels. Coming back from Anne's trip to Uganda, I can't even tell you the list. Every day she's sending me things. I'm like, okay, put it on the list. There's a list of things that we need to meet. Medical needs. We just invested in a campus last year to help our partners. 17 abandoned babies already over there in January.
Yeah.
So there's endless need. And, so little it takes to stand in the gap. And like you said, and it's so true, the littlest things, who's going to be the next, who's going to change the world? Maybe it's one of those children whose lives are being saved, or, we just don't know, and so, and their lives are worthy. Like, I would love for people to follow our social media. I think, if you want to see hope, that's our theme for 2025. Hope lives here.
I love it.
And hope lives here. Let me tell you, look at our social media. It's so good. It really is. God writes the most beautiful stories, and so much good is being done. And then I'd also love it if people would sign up for our emails.
Yep.
That's on our website as well, because I feel like it's such a world where so much negativity, so much, perceived craziness and real craziness. And just to see like good things happen, beautiful things happen, miracles, right?
I want to give a plug for that, right? Because there's this saying that you become a component of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And for many of us, one of those quote unquote people is social media, the grand scheme of it. Think about all the information you're consuming, right?
Right.
I always tell my clients, do spring cleaning of your social media. And if there are things bothering you and the feed isn't right and you're following the wrong people and pursuing, why?
Right.
I'm not saying unfollow and
Snooze them.
Right. I'm not saying duck your head in the sand about things going on in the world.
Right.
Of course, be informed, but you could follow folks like Lisa and again be flooded with some gratitude and some so we all have a choice for sure. Make that the 5th person.
That's so cool that you said that, because I always used to say, when people would go, social media is so bad, I'm like, you are following the wrong people.
I created a post on LinkedIn that went a little bit viral and got a ton of follows and network requests from people on LinkedIn. And so I accepted pretty much all of them, but it brought, my feed this morning was fresh. I was like, it was like 180 new people.
I love it.
And I was like, it felt like a different environment, Lisa. It was just such it was like a glass of cold water. And in my mind, I was like, wow, how do I talk about this? And voila.
I love it. And
but thank you for sharing all of this with us.
Yeah, and we just released yesterday our 2024, we call it a gratitude report. It's our impact report.
Yesterday would have been Monday, January 27th. So I'm going to try to do this before.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, the gratitude report is just, I don't know. I look back.
Every family should have one of those, a gratitude report.
Yeah, and it's for the charity. And I look back at every year and go, how?
Writing that down.
What just happened? And to
the
look
Luces
back
gratitude report.
And and it's every year we do our gratitude report for the charity, and it's mind-boggling to me the things that happened in the past year.
Not only a founder, but leadership tip there.
Okay.
Do a gratitude.
Gratitude report.
Yeah.
And we really should do that for our family now that you say that.
I'm going to do a gratitude report. Lisa, thank you so much. This was such an inspiring story. I am honored to have spent part of your birthday with you and share your message.
Before we leave, hold on. I have a gift for you.
What? For me? Yes. That is so sweet, and it's in a bag and everything.
Yes,
first
of
all,
I brought you a copy of my book.
Yay! With an open heart.
Yeah,
That's
so you can read about our baby.
He's so beautiful.
That's Daniel.
I love it. Thank you. I appreciate
and you'll like
this.
it. So it's
you got to sign it for me.
The motto that God gave me was live, listen, leap. And so live, listen, leap was like live with this unabandoned.
You need a shirt to give out with people.
This unabandoned,
it's beautiful. Thank you. I appreciate
moving
this.
in faith, listening to.
Is the book available for purchase?
Yeah, on Amazon.
Here you go, guys.
And leap is that leap of faith. Like, just go for it.
Yeah.
You know, if it feels right.
More gifts?
Yes, this is your Open Hearts for Orphans necklace, like the one I'm wearing.
Oh my goodness, you didn't have to.
Yes, I did.
Wow.
Thank you. You're an ambassador. Yes. You got.
Wow, what a way. This is how you do it, guys.
You have an open heart.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
I really appreciate
Please.
this.
I feel like I just met you. You're my sister.
Yes, thank you. I am so I don't know what the right words are. It's gorgeous. Thank you. The mission of, there's so many things we can hang our hats on, and even I filmed an episode earlier today. You have to figure out what moves you, and from there, what the micro steps are, and from there, I'm going to use this: live, listen, and leap into a future that can seem so much more optimistic than maybe what's playing in your head. And I think we all owe it to ourselves to really gas it and not be in the status quo. It's boring
so much
in there.
Better.
Yeah.
Like, I look back, I'm like, how did this even happen?
Like, literally, I just spoke to Lisa Friday, and here I am. I'm a nerd, so I'm always reading hand jewelry. If you guys have watched me, I'm always like decked out.
See, I didn't know that.
So follow your heart. Oh my goodness, right? Build community and take small steps. That's what I got from this. So I love that. To our listeners, if you were moved by this episode, please like, subscribe, and share this. And also like, subscribe, and share the work that Lisa is doing with her foundation. And if you are looking for a community of women of color that are redefining leadership, living authentically, and leading courageously, please join my free online community. It is a global community. As of last night, I think we have about 18 countries represented.
Amazing.
That is nuts. It's called the Rising Beyond Power Collective, and you can find that on my website. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you again next week on Beyond the Quo. Thanks, Lisa.